So yeah, and again, I think the whole AI landscape right now too, I feel like, and this is my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think having a human interaction, even if it isn't perfect, is more desirable or will continue to be just in the right places to make people feel like they have that level of service. This is a service business.
Yeah.
So
And
I
we're
want to
in
maintain that.
our business is in the AI niche, and we absolutely firmly believe that you can't replace human. You can augment and fully support and get better, but the human touch is where it can't be replaced because that's building relationships and, truly understanding the nature of people, right?
Yes.
Welcome to Property Pulse, where we have conversations with operators that run property management at scale. We talk about tenant experience, leasing reality, and the operational pressure points most people only notice after something breaks. Today's guest is Brooke Hesseltine. Did I pronounce that right, Brooke?
You did.
I did. Okay, great. She's the managing partner of Pioneer Management, one of Oregon's most established property management firms. Pioneer has been operating since 1988 and now manages over $500 million in assets across Bend, Eugene, Roseburg, and Central Oregon. Brooke is an owner, operator, and a systems driven leader with deep experience scaling teams and processes without losing the human side of the business. Brooke, welcome to Property Pulse.
Thanks for having me, Drew.
You bet. All right, to start, walk me through your role today. What decisions ultimately land with you? Like, let's see, what parts of the business do you stay closest to on purpose?
I like that framing. I keep so yes, the first answer to your question is I'm involved in everything, which is not ideal. But I guess not necessarily because I have to, but sometimes because I just want to, because I'm really excited about all the different pieces of the business, but also at an altitude where I can kind of have the bird's eye view to see what's going well, but what could be better and where it's some pain points that we should dive into to make improvements. Because that is my background, as you mentioned, just operations, just making things run as smoothly as possible, setting up a system and then getting out of the way so my team can deliver and execute on it. So currently I'm focused on annual planning for the business because it is New Year's and everyone's got their New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
I don't do personal ones, but I do planning for the business.
Perfect. When something breaks operationally, where do you look first to understand what actually went wrong?
Usually in the tool where something broke. So for example, Pioneer does embrace technology to the extent that it is helpful to us.
Okay.
AI and we hear about it every single day. There's some AI fatigue out there potentially, maybe
Yeah.
not, but AI is an amazing tool that can really help us accelerate and do some of those repetitive tasks. However, it's kind of middle to middle versus end to end. So humans still need to be there to prompt it and to QA it. So, with that framing, we have an AI receptionist to help make sure our phone calls get answered by anyone who picks up the phone and tries to call our main line, but not by a member of my human team. By her name's Caitlin, and she is an AI receptionist, and she's been trained with a bunch of Q&As. But sometimes I'll get feedback from folks, and we actually have a transcript. It's through Ring Central, which is really amazing. And they continue to release updates. As an example, most recently last week, I got feedback from another property manager. So he felt like we were kindred and he could give me I talked to your AI receptionist. She's kind of cool, but she's a little glitchy here and there. And here's some examples. So immediately the action I took to answer your question was, well, let's go into Ring Central and see what his call transcript was
Yeah.
and how she either didn't route him properly and where the sticking points were.
Hmm.
Uh, and thankfully, what we discovered was he was just testing her. So he asked her questions like, where's Pizza Hut and things like that, just to see what
Hmm.
she did. She didn't have good answers for that because nobody else has asked those questions. So I appreciate, you know, getting those opportunities. But obviously the system isn't perfect and we continuously need to monitor it and make it better. But
Hmm.
to answer your question, we go to where the tech comes from, which is in this case, it was Ring Central. So go in there and try to figure out, diagnose what happened so we can fix it.
Got it.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. So within Ring Central is where your AI receptionist lives, basically.
Correct.
Got it.
But they do talk across platforms. So we have um, our property viewing and we have some smart code boxes, like lock boxes that folks can
Hmm.
do schedule self showings. And that's through a different platform called Rent Engine and it has its own AI. And so
Hmm.
sometimes people are calling and call our number to schedule a viewing. And so Caitlin, our virtual receptionist from Ring Central, will talk to Rent Engine's virtual receptionist.
Mhm.
And those handshakes are places where we like to cross our fingers a lot that it goes well. And so there's just a lot of, again, that middle to middle versus end to end. So then one of my team members, his job is just to like be behind the scenes in QA and make sure he's quarterbacking those conversations to make sure nothing's falling down. And they have
Yeah.
some analytics built in to say, oh, this person, they dropped off. There's an error. There's an issue, an unsuccessful, handoff. So what we do is go investigate, well, what happened and what can we do to improve it? So next time it can have a successful handoff.
Do they both plug into your existing PMS?
No, they do not. They're
Okay.
outside of we as
They
rent.
sit outside. Okay.
Correct.
Got it. And you have a in-house team that monitors all that activity? What goes
Yes.
wrong? What's good? What needs to be reprogrammed? All that.
Yes. I have one team member, Archie, who he is not customer facing. He's more behind the scenes from an operation standpoint. And so he has the capacity to just focus on making sure my team has the resources they need to be set up for success. And then also, in the middle of your day to day, it's hard to get pulled out and let's go like diagnose why that phone call didn't work, right? Because you're like, hey, I've
Yeah.
got like 5 work orders and I've got some owners calling. So he's dedicated to just that back office stuff to make
Yeah.
sure their attention is given where it's due.
Okay. Can you walk us through a recent after hours tenant issue that had real urgency? Like, what was the issue? Who handled it first? And how did it move from intake to resolution? Is that your AI or is that real humans handling all that?
Good question. So currently we do all of our maintenance triaging in-house with humans.
Okay.
There are a number of property management, maintenance, third-party vendors out there. Like, see off the top, there's Property Meld. There's what's the new one? It's like a kangaroo or something to that effect. Anyway, it'll come to me in a second. But there's a whole bunch of those. We
A
are exploring that idea.
party
Sorry.
maintenance? Third party, what kind of
Like
company?
maintenance, basically somebody calls in and it is an AI that answers like, "Oh, your toilet isn't flushing properly." And it goes through kind of a punch list of what the most common, reasons why that would be happening, and it tries to help triage it, and then it'll escalate as necessary.
Okay.
But I don't have that. So to answer your question, the most common scenario for that case would be like on a weekend. So
Uh-huh.
my team does have we trade weekend shifts, checking our main shared inbox for work orders that are submitted, but also folks that either call the main line, leave a message, or email our team. So
Uh-huh.
anything that's health and safety related, so heat is out or water intrusion, things like that. Whoever's on call for the weekend will monitor and make sure if they see something that they do something about it. So it's manually handled at this time, and usually again it's something related to heat and water that would be an emergency situation, and they just pick up the phone and start calling vendors if they need to get it resolved.
At what point would you say, does a maintenance issue turn into a tenant trust issue? Like, where do teams, I guess, most often lose control of communication with residents?
When an owner gets involved with talking to a tenant, usually for all good intention, but once a tenant has the property owner's contact information, they can go directly to the property owner and say, "Hey, I've got these problems." And then it just opens kind of a can of worms, so to speak, because then the owner may usually, for reasons beyond my understanding, because they pay us to take care of it, but they, oh, I've got some time. Let me try to fix it for you, and then that goes south. And then the owner thinks we're not doing our job, which again, we didn't get any communication from the tenant to get, to do what our job is to take care of resolving the issues.
Yeah.
That is something we try to acknowledge and be really transparent with our owners. Like, hey, our best practice is that if there is a situation where you guys exchange contact information, just please make sure you're always pointing them to us. Don't
Yeah.
engage. And so,
Cool. Got it.
did that
Can you
answer your
share?
question?
Yeah. Can you share an example where good communication stopped a tenant issue from blowing up, even if it might not have been fixed right away?
Yes. Let me just think of a good example. So we have the son of a property owner. A lot of our property owners are in the later years of their life.
Okay.
And so some of them are leaning on their children to help with managing their day-to-day things. Again,
Mhm.
property management, we're not necessarily a part of the day-to-day, but we're interfacing with a gentleman who is not technically on title or owns the property, but he's the son of somebody. And he decided that he is a handyman and he wants to fix some water issues because he thinks plumbers are expensive. And the tenants did not appreciate his willingness and enthusiasm to fix some water issues, but because he insisted to us that he was the owner, even though by extension that he wasn't going to approve us sending a professional out to fix the issue. So my team was able to kind of broker that conversation with the gentleman who really had no business touching the property in the first place to understand that it's best if he just lets us do what we do best.
Yeah.
And also the tenants were, again, not excited about having him in the property because they also tend to not stick to the scope of the tasks and they start talking about other things. Anyway, I think all of it boils down to my team was able to kind of give them both a soft exit so that we could get the right people in to resolve the issue. And then the tenants were happy and they renewed their lease and they're still staying.
Good.
For a while, they were calling my office quite a bit, saying, "Hey, this guy keeps calling us. We really, really, really don't want him coming working on the house because he tends to do more harm than good."
But they renewed, so that's important,
It
right?
did at the end of it. So that's kind of where the challenge can come in with some of our owners. That's kind of a not so common example, but there are folks that genuinely are owners of properties that want to be involved. And as much as we appreciate their willingness to roll up their sleeves and do, the work themselves, and a lot of them are
Mhm.
capable of doing it. Some of them
Yeah.
just, I'm very data driven, and the number one driver of tenant retention is work order closure time.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of data to support that. So, we can easily create, right now we're at 6 days to close on average. Obviously, it depends on the nature of the work. It's a new roof that doesn't take 6 days, obviously. But smaller things, handyman related, we can get done. And we'll respond same day. That's our best practice. But you add, the owner saying, "I'm going to take care of it myself, but I'm going to be in Phoenix for a few weeks. And so I'll take care of it in 3 weeks." And the tenant, they don't know that it goes from days to weeks to close. And now the tenant is feeling like they're not being well taken care of because of, you know, the reason I just explained. So
Does 6 days feel good to you? Is that a good threshold?
we're still working on continuous improvement. There's some industry people like top 1%, they close work orders in something like 3 days, which I don't know how they do that. But yeah, I mean, as long as my team feels like it's a good rhythm, and if
Yeah.
we have good subs and we pay them, you know, and we process their invoices same day. So we want to make sure everybody's really, kind of humming along. And so wherever that sweet spot is, but six feels good to me. I
Yep.
mean, if we can do better, let's try, but I don't want to, three again, I
Without
don't,
sacrificing quality, right?
yeah. Like we got good vendors, we want to keep them busy. And so, yeah, we start pulling other people we don't know to do stuff, and the quality, like you said, could go down. So just a lot of balancing.
Yeah. Very good. Where'd you say most tenants where do tenants most often need the same thing explained more than once?
Um, Let me think what day rent is due. um,
Really? Yeah.
I think it's a suggestion, but yeah, try to think of another example that's a little less
But that's a top
sarcastic.
one. That's up there.
Yeah.
When is rent due?
Sorry, what was that?
That's a top
Is
one. When is rent
sure.
due?
Yeah, and then moving when do I get my security deposit back? We provide a lot of that information that we provide them when they sign their lease, when they
Mhm.
move out, they spend months or years.
Yeah.
It's it's reasonable that they're asking those questions, so we have
Of
some
course.
Q&A, but
Yeah.
mostly it's just rent, how do I pay rent? And especially, again, there's a lot of older folks too that are tenants, which we love
Mhm.
them, they're great. However, they're not as tech savvy. And so as we try to migrate towards digital payments as much as
Mhm.
possible, we're trying to incentivize like, "Hey, we'll give you $5 off your renewal," meaning you're going to save $5 a month on your next year lease if
Mhm.
you pay with ACH instead of a check. 'Cause, gosh, a year ago, I think our office was getting over 200 checks that we had
Mm.
to process and take to the
Process.
bank, a deposit or mobile deposit. And I was like, I mean, this just adds up to hours. So I was like, if we do, I mean, ACH is instant. It's automatic and
Right.
nobody has to touch it. It's more secure. But again, some of these folks are just like, "Oh, no, no. Like, I have to write a check and I have to bring it to you." And so those
Physical
people,
print.
yeah, it's like, okay, you guys are darling. That's fine. You're always going to be that way. But everybody else who can and is capable of it's like, I'm happy to hold your hand and give you all these like, here's how you do it. But that's, so right now we're down to about 35 checks a month,
Mm.
which is still more than,
And you would like,
yeah,
but
but it's,
you're at the 200.
yes, there's a few times where I was sitting there depositing this check, 200 checks. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah.
When those questions come in, does your AI handle a lot of that? Or are they calling a real person for those kinds of questions?
Good question. So the virtual receptionist that we got with Ring Central, we just deployed about 6 months ago. And so this was about a year ago when we were doing the check migration. So that was more of a email blast out to everybody saying, "Hey, great news! You can pay online, and here's
Mhm.
how you do it. And if you need to help, just call us, and we'll help you through it." Our virtual receptionist, she has FAQs for setting it up, but she can't. To my knowledge, I'd be really shocked if she could actually help somebody over the phone set up their ACH and Rentvine. So yeah,
Mhm.
and again, I think the whole AI landscape right now too, I feel like, and this is my opinion, could be wrong, but I think having a human interaction, even if it isn't perfect, is uh, more desirable or will continue to be just in the right places to make people feel like they have that level of service. This is a service business.
Yeah.
So
And
I
we're
want
in
to maintain that.
our business is in the AI niche, and we absolutely firmly believe that you can't replace human, you know? You can augment and fully support and get better, but the human touch is where it can't be replaced because that's building relationships and, truly understanding the nature of people, right?
Yes, totally.
So
So
you can
yes,
always get better with your AI systems, that's all.
and it frees up time so we can focus more on those strategic relationship building activities versus the redundancy of, firing off a work order. And I am vendor, that's the name of the other like property knowledge vendor is the other
Gender.
maintenance. It's a maintenance, yeah, like uh, a virtual maintenance technician or
Got it.
coordinator type of a thing,
Okay.
which I think would be, and I'm seriously considering it just to help my two property specialists kind of triage again the little things. So then again, they can focus on the big things. That's a big, win, save some
Mhm.
time, get it
Good.
done just as good,
Yeah.
maybe better.
And that was called vendor, you said, yeah?
Vendaroo,
Vendaroo, like kangaroo. Oh, yeah, you
like,
did say something about kangaroo. It's
yeah,
vendor.
there are
Okay.
some about animal.
Can you, walk me through how a strong leasing prospect typically enters your system today? How do they
Um,
first reach out?
So I'll take you through like our biggest happy path would be about 50% of our applicants come through through Zillow.
Okay,
And so they'll see our listings in Rentvine syndicate out to 18 or 19 websites, Zillow being one of them. And that's again the number one driver of people getting in contact with us. So let's say they're on Zillow, they click on the ad, it takes them to Rent Engine, which is where they would schedule. They can just text. You don't have to have email or phone calls. You can, but it's all text based, which is nice. It's very
fair enough.
simple and helps people communicate the way they kind of because they're mostly on their phone when they're reaching out in the first place. So they can text that they, would you like us to schedule a tour for you? Yes, here's the link and you can schedule it. They have to upload a picture of their ID, so you
Um,
can verify, they are who they say they are. They schedule the tour, then they get the code when they're within 5 feet of the code box to get access to the property. Then they get instructions for how to close up. And then they get a text message back from Rent Engine saying, "Hey, what did you think? Any feedback? Would you like an application?" And say, "Yep, it's perfect. I want to, thanks for the application." They fill out the application. That's in Rentvine. And then at that point, my leasing agent, Karen, takes over. So she's a human,
okay,
and she will pre-qualify the applicant to make sure that they meet our minimum standards. So we're not wasting their $50. We want to make sure they look like they're going to get, they're worth processing.
very
They're
nice.
qualified enough. Ask them if they have any co-applicants or pets and when their move-in date would be, and then she'll process the application, meaning order the background check, criminal check, request their 2 months of verifiable income, and then their personal references, and then go through that process of collecting that information. And then based on what she gets back, she'll send that to our property manager to either approve or conditionally approve or deny that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, sure does.
Okay.
Where would you say that speed matters most in leasing?
I think viewing the property. When we adopted Rent Engine, before that, we were using a different, it was Tenant Turner. And tell me if you're familiar with these or not. But once we, Tenant Turner kind of, it would send you an email. And so people had to get out of their text and go in email because Rent Engine solely 100% or can be interacted with exclusively as a text message. Or let me see, I have some data points. If I can get them at my fingertips, it'd be more fun. Let's see.
And these tools are used to schedule a showing, as an example?
Yes, our viewings, what is it? Our days on market dropped and
Okay.
our applications per unit doubled. And so did we went from an average of, we got 48 applications in August. In September, we got Rent Engine, we got 70. So it was a pretty
Wow.
good uptick. And then the next month, October, we got 80. So
No,
it's almost doubled our applications. And I believe it's because it was a better, smoother process so they could view the property a little more easily
okay.
just by
So it
texting.
sounds like that was a great example, right? Do you attest that to the speed and also with ease of use? Like,
Yes. And then one of my team members, Erin, who's our leasing agent, her shift is at from noon Pacific Standard Time to 9 p.m.
okay.
So because we have a lot of, it works for her and her family, but
Mhm.
also because of where she lives. But a lot of folks do this, they house shop after hours, after work, and all these things. The nice
Yeah.
thing is, since she's on until 9 p.m., she can, if anything, Rent Engine gets stuck on, because again, the AI is like, hey, Drew, you want to schedule a viewing? That's awesome. Like, here's the link. And then if you're like, oh, like, I can't figure this out. And it needs to escalate to a human, and Karen's there to help if they need a
Nice.
manual code or like, hey, I'm here, but I opened the code box and I closed it too soon. And now the key's still stuck in the box and I can't get another code. And she's like, here's another code. So
Yeah.
it's nice that we have that. Again, now the human is quarterbacking the AI
Yes.
and can make sure that it's still successful.
Yeah. Can you share an example of a strong prospect who didn't end up leasing and maybe what you learned afterwards?
I guess
Or is that
not as
too
specific,
granular?
but in general, like folks, if you're a strong applicant, you've got a good credit score, good income, good references, and
Mhm.
I call them a cream puff. And so those people, it is more of a function of how fast can we process their application. But, maybe and this has happened a few times, they applied to three different places, A, B, and C, and we were B or C, and they got approved at A too. And so
Right.
they were like, oh, we're no longer, we're going to move to that one. That was our favorite property. So it's like, okay, darn. So in that regard, I'm not sure, well, other than making sure we're processing their application as quickly as possible, but if their heart was on another property and they were a cream puff tenant, then they're gonna probably, I would choose
Yeah.
my A choice all day long, right? So I don't
Yeah, yeah,
blame
of
them for that.
course.
So
But as long as it didn't come down to because of speed or because of,
yeah.
someone
No, I do
dropping.
think we're pretty quick in terms of processing an application. We can get the thing that takes the longest is reference checks because we do check them. And talk to a human and make sure we get those references. And sometimes, people are busy, so there's quite a handful of follow up that sometimes need. And sometimes you have to ask the tenant, like, "Hey, can your previous landlord, we haven't been able to get in touch. If you're able to give them a heads up that we're trying to reach them, that'd be really helpful." But everything else is pretty quick. The credit score comes back usually within a few minutes. If they provide their pay stubs, that's task is done.
Yeah,
Then yeah, it's really just the reference.
got it. Can you share an example of where tour scheduling became more disruptive than it should have been?
Disruptive. I can't think of an so the way our system works is you block a half hour viewing. And so if the viewing is already scheduled, the system won't let another person view this property at the same time.
Okay,
Um, and thankfully, knock on wood, we haven't had any people like show up at the same time. But
great.
again, maybe they have. And with the understanding that the property is for lease, like it kind of makes sense that maybe somebody else might be here too. But that's the closest thing I can think of to answer that question.
Sure. Okay. How do cancellations or no-shows impact the business more than people expect?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. We do get uh, a good chunk of no-shows or cancellations for viewings. Life happens. I don't track those very closely to find out if we get any data on why. And maybe one good question to ask is, do those people, of the people who cancel or no-show, do they reschedule? Because maybe again, just a conflict came up, but did they change their mind and why? But we focus on days on market.
Mhm.
And then again, just on a daily basis, monitor the activity of the listings. And if we don't see the activity we're looking for, just in terms of inquiries, viewing scheduled, we also get the feedback again after they walk the property. Hey, would you like, what didn't you like? In case it's like, oh, there's a big piece of dog poo in the front yard. It's like, oh, great, let's get out there. So try to get some feedback from there. But focusing on days on market helps us instead of more of that trajectory is what I focus on. How many
Yeah.
days on market? And so if we don't see the activity we're looking for on Thursdays, we proactively reduce rent $50, starting at $50 a week to make sure
Mhm.
the property is getting rented and it's not sitting on the market any longer than it needs to, just in case
Mm.
it wasn't. We try to price it at the sweet spot, but sometimes, we're not
Yeah.
100% accurate every time. So we do our best, but we'll adjust if we need to.
Always got to do that A/B testing, no matter what you're
Yeah.
doing. If tour coordination ran perfectly, where would your team immediately refocus their time?
Well, I think tour coordination is kind of running perfectly for me right now. I just jinxed myself. But the fact that Red Engine kind of covers it for us and then Karen is quarterbacking it if something does escalate. So the rest of my team really doesn't have a lot to do with the viewing process. Once their job ends, the boots on the ground team, their job ends once they finish marketing assets. So they take video and photos. And so and they get the lockbox on the unit. And then, the magic of the internet, the listing goes live, rent engine goes live. People can chat with the AI on text to schedule their viewing. The only time that humans interact is just if the property's been on the market, we'll drive by and go visit it. If we get some feedback, again, the example, not so great example of poop in the front yard, then we'll send somebody over to spiff it up, get rid of that thing. So boots on the ground only engages if there's an escalation from the rent engine system.
Mhm.
And then once we get the application approved, we'll schedule the move-in inspection. So that's when my team goes back out to the property, conducts the move-in inspection, takes the lockbox off, make sure the property is clean and ready for the tenants to get their keys.
Great. What do you wish you could be handled consistently without requiring human judgment, if anything at all?
What could be handled consistently without requiring human judgment? That's a good question. I'm sure there's an
Or maybe in your world there is nothing right now because you balance everything. It seems like you're balancing everything quite well.
thank you, but there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something, but off the top of my head, I'm having a
Or
hard
maybe
time.
like a follow-up question, maybe to bring in a different angle to it. Like, where does human decision making truly add value? And where do you think that it might slow things down? Maybe that's the same kind of question worded
Yeah.
differently.
Well, and I think going back to the work order, an AI maintenance coordinator, I do see that as the top opportunity for extending my team into getting an AI maintenance coordinator because there is a lot of some work orders are just, my faucet, you know, is leaking. Well, it's obvious what the solution is for that. We need to send somebody, and if they can provide photos and you can see that it's dripping, it's not like gushing, there's a lot of it's an obvious escalation. It's like send out a either handyman or plumber based on the type of leak it is. So I think that could save a lot of human interaction times for those really straightforward things.
Yeah.
Front door doesn't lock anymore. Like, okay, well then we need to send out a maintenance tech to fix that. There's not a lot of brain processing to figure out what needs to be done.
Right.
And on the other side of it, I think there's just more of those when there is an interaction, our owners for a turnover, kind of helping them understand what the process is, how we're helping, making sure we're maximizing funds and identifying what needs to be done for a turn versus what could be done, nice to haves versus must do's. Those conversations, building trust with these folks goes way further than spending the time calling a plumber for an obvious you know, faucet leak. So I'd
Yeah.
rather them spend their time building those relationships.
Right. Exactly. That's the strongest part of us humans. Before we wrap up, Brooke, what would you say separates operators who scale cleanly from those who might struggle?
I would say you don't know what you don't know. And so people that feel like they need to wear every hat and want to wear every hat might, from your words, struggle with scaling because they're trying to do a lot themselves that they don't
Mhm.
necessarily need to do. It's more about who versus how. And those that are successful, I can see their own value, what their own native genius is, and where they should be investing their time versus where somebody else who's better at doing that task should be in that seat. And that
Beautiful.
is something I'm working on every day.
We all are, right? That's great. Well, Brooke, thank you for breaking down how this actually works at scale. I mean, the clarity you shared around tenant communication, leasing discipline, and protecting team focus was really valuable. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
To our listeners, if this conversation was useful, subscribe to Property Pulse, and we will see you next time. Thanks, guys.